are talking with Martha Mendoza. She is a insurance agent with Tatum Insurance and has been in the industry for quite some time. So Martha, take it away.
Thanks, Angie, for having me. I am an insurance agent slash broker. I've been in insurance for 6 years. I started with State Farm, so I know quite a bit about State Farm insurance. And then I transitioned over to the non-captive side, to the independent side, about a year ago. So I've been an independent broker for about a year now. And I like having the option of having many different companies to shop from, not just one like with State Farm.
As a broker, you're able to shop around for the best rates for them, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of being with one independent company. So that would definitely save a home buyer. And in this particular case, we'll be talking about home insurance. So it definitely saved them a buck or two when shopping for the best rate for home insurance. Why do you think home insurance is important? And if you can explain the benefits of homeowners insurance, and especially during like a home disaster. So, floods, like we just have recently had snowstorms, that sort of thing in Texas. So, and actually, let me back up just a little bit. Just let everybody know where you're licensed in as well. I know we're in Arizona, but you are licensed in other states. So just let everyone know as well where else you do business in.
Obviously in Arizona, but I'm also licensed in California, recently in Nevada, New Mexico, and Texas. Sorry, I forget. So pretty much the entire Southwest. And Tatum Insurance, if I'm not licensed, we can probably find somebody in another state anyway. We normally have everybody in the entire country. I think the only place we can't insure is Nebraska.
Gotcha. Okay. And then why do you think home insurance, or explain why homeowners insurance is important to somebody who's looking to buy a home?
The point of insurance is risk management and to indemnify or make the person whole after a disaster or unexpected event. So that's the main point of insurance, whether it's homeowners or auto or even life insurance. And protecting your assets, besides yourself as an asset, that I think the person is their own biggest asset. Their home is usually the second biggest asset. Your homeowner's insurance should be very important, and you should always have an agent that you trust and that you have a good conversation going with them. You need to be able to ask them, hey, am I covered enough for any disaster that were to happen? Do I have proper coverage? What coverage do I need? And why would I need it? So you can't just take the word of the agent and say, oh, well, this is what I need because that's what they said. They do also need to explain why you would need that coverage as well, because obviously you're paying for it. So you need to know what you're paying for.
Yeah.
So with homeowners insurance, you have many options, and you do have extras and endorsements as well. So whenever, say, the home were to burn down to the ground, what the company is going to do is going to rebuild it from the ground up, and that's part of indemnifying you or making you whole. So it'll be to how it was before you had that, whether the home burned down or whatever happened to it. Now, with what happened in Texas, a lot of it is covered with snow or ice falling on the roof and stuff like that. So that would be something that may be covered. Just it depends on the claims adjuster and the insurance company itself. But something like flood insurance, it is separate from homeowners insurance. So that's something that you also need to speak to your agent about, because that's not usually covered under a typical homeowner's policy. So that is another thing that you would need to speak to your agent about and make sure that you have it if you are in a flood prone area. Now, many areas, even Arizona, they may not always be flood prone, but it is possible to get floods like we had in Mesa, with how many years ago was it?
Yes.
So it's always good to look into it because of the fact that it can still happen, and we do have monsoons. So it's a very real possibility. And like I said, insurance is risk management, asset protection, and it's to indemnify you and make you whole to how you were before the incident, accident, or whatever it was that happened.
And a lot of people, they think because we're in the desert, right? We don't see floods, and it's so rare. But I mean, Texas never had seen a snowstorm like that. So you don't think about what coverage you need when you're buying a home. And I didn't realize that flood insurance is separate from homeowners insurance, but you're right. There are places in Arizona that are zoned flood zones. And you'll actually find that when you're buying a home, when they do the title report from the title and escrow companies, that should be listed on that preliminary report so that and you're aware. So you see that report and you're like, oh, I'm in a flood zone. That means I probably should get flood insurance. So then take that to your trusted insurance agent and say, hey, I'm buying this property that is in a flood zone. What do I need to do to protect my home, my assets?
As an insurance agent, I can say I'm not that great with flood insurance, but I have a guy. I have someone who's great with flood insurance. So even if you do have a trusted insurance agent, if you don't have a trusted insurance agent, you need to find someone you trust. As an insurance agent myself, if I can't do it, I will find somebody that I trust to provide the best coverage for you. So it's always that having that open relationship with your agent to make sure that you do have the best coverage.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so what should someone know when shopping around for homeowners insurance? And I know you as a broker, it's kind of like the one-stop shop for all. So we just really go to you and say, hey, buying a house, $300,000, what can you get me, right?
Well, the first question, especially if you're buying a brand new home, the first question I'll ask is, when's the closing date? And then the next question I will ask is, how much is the loan for? And how much are you purchasing the home for? Because when we're quoting a homeowner's policy, we do run an estimated home estimator. So it'll tell us based on the square footage, based on number of bedrooms, based on number of bathrooms, it'll tell us how much it costs to rebuild the home from the ground up. What we always say is we don't insure the land because the land is not going away. Even if it floods, even if it burns, the land's still there. So we're insuring for the home to rebuild from the ground up and to remove the debris and whatever is left after. Exactly. After a catastrophic event, we have to make you whole. So that is what we ask. So I will ask for how much you're paying for the home, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. I can usually look up that information, but I like to double check just to make sure that the information that I'm seeing online is correct. After that, we do get an estimate based on how much it is to rebuild the house from the ground up. And then we go from there. So the next thing after that is you have how much liability do you want on the homeowner's policy? Most people don't know that liability coverage on your homeowner's policy covers a ton. So the number one liability insurance claim right now in the United States is dog bites. And most people don't realize that. A dog bite can cost a lot of money. So it's medical bills, it's people suing for pain and suffering. So your homeowner's liability will cover that if it is not excluded. So they will defend you and then pay out whatever is necessary, whatever the judge orders to pay out. So the next question that I ask as an insurance agent is, do you have any pets? Because there are certain breeds that certain companies will not write because they are some of the highest dog
breeds.
claims on it.
Can you disclose some of those breeds for anybody listening that may have these pets and looking to buy a home?
Yes, and some of the ones I was surprised with some of them because I have seen German Shepherds on the list. I have seen Akitas, and then we also have Chow Chows and Dobermans and Pit Bulls. So it's Chihuahua's not on there. So if you have a Chihuahua, you're fine, even though they're like nipping your heels.
That's what I got.
They're still fine.
They might sue me for its bark, but I think I can
now,
get away with it.
the biggest one that I have issues with, because a lot of people in Arizona have Huskies, and Huskies is one of the breeds that does tend to have a lot of bite claims on it. And sadly, they're big babies, and so are the German Shepherds, but they do have a claim history of bites. So that's why it is very important, whether you have insurance right now, homeowners insurance, or you're planning on getting homeowners insurance, to check to see how much liability you have on your homeowners insurance. Because your liability can be as low as $100,000 and it can be as high as $1 million. So what I usually do as a starting point is I usually set it at 500,000.
Okay, go in the middle.
Yeah, which should be enough for most normal claims. If you have a pool, you need to make sure as well. Besides dogs, if you have a pool, you need to make sure your liability is pretty high as well, because if somebody jumps your fence and they're running from the cops and they jump to the fence and drown people, you can be responsible for that.
And not many people know that.
Exactly. So liability is very important, and it's something that I talk about, and I scream it to the world every chance I get because it matters.
Because it only takes that one time.
That one time to change your life, and it does change people's lives.
Yes, and that is something that, again, when you're buying a home, these are things you don't know about, realize until you become a homeowner and something happens. And God forbid that, any one of these things happen to anybody, but they do happen, and you want to be prepared.
Yes, and you don't want to think I need it as the cheapest thing because I have to have it and I don't like having it.
Yes.
The one time you need to use it is when you want to make sure you got the most possible, because it's when it counts.
That's very true. I think a lot of people are so looking for the best, cheapest available, right? So that they can keep their costs down. And while that's important to a lot of people, in the event that something like this can happen, catastrophe, you're going to end up paying way more than what you were paying monthly in those lawsuits and claims. So
Absolutely.
Very, very important for you future homeowners or current homeowners now too as well that don't know that. So good information, good stuff. So what are the different homeowner policies available, and what is the best for the average homeowner?
Well, there's a couple of different options that don't really matter to the average homeowner, because you have an HO3 policy, you have an HO5 policy, and then you have the condo unit owners policy. So your agent would be the best one to get that information from you as you're speaking about as you're shopping for the policy itself. So with an HO3 special policy, it just comes down to what is covered, whether it's an open peril or named peril. What that means is the risks that are covered. So mainly with an HO5 homeowners policy, you have pretty much everything covered except whatever is excluded in an exclusions list on the policy itself. So whatever happens, the home will be covered other than what they're saying we don't cover it. So it's named exclusions versus named perils or what is covered. An HO3 special policy is what most people have right now, and it covers almost everything. The only thing, let me see, I have that somewhere. The main thing it won't cover is something like mysterious disappearance of your personal property. So it's if if you're out and about and you lose something that is covered under your homeowner's policy of personal property and it's lost, it's considered a mysterious disappearance. So that normally would not be covered under your homeowner's special.
If you're outside of your house and you make that claim?
Mm-hmm. Huh. So yeah, because for example, many insurance policies will cover if you have whatever you have in storage. Also, liability does. So you don't have to be in your home to be covered by your homeowner's insurance. And most people don't know that.
Nope, I didn't.
So if you own a plot of land, say in Snowflake or somewhere,
yeah,
and you have no buildings on that plot of land, and somebody's walking their dog there and trips over and hits their head and wants to sue you because it's your property, then the liability will cover you on that. Your homeowner's insurance covers you in whole, not just your house.
I just learned that, so that's interesting. Oh my gosh, didn't know that. So homeowner or buyer buys their home, now they're in the home. Few years later down the road, should that homeowner constantly be looking at their policy to see if they need to update things, change coverage, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. It's very important. Like I said, if you have a good agent, they will most likely contact you at renewal yearly and say, hey, do you have any questions, or do you have any concerns, or has your life changed to the point that we need to look at your life? At your not life, sorry, your homeowner's policy. And well, if you have life insurance,
not in your life.
What happens with homeowners insurance is the policies that are being written now come with inflation guard. So that means that every year the dwelling coverage for the policy itself, so the amount of coverage for the home if it were to burn down, increases a little bit every year. And that's why your homeowner's policy will increase in premium a little bit every year, because you are getting more coverage every year. And it makes sense, a lot more to be built. So yeah, this saves you from down the road being underinsured. Now, what happens there also is because of the inflation guard, 10 years down the road, you end up, you say your house, you had insured it at the beginning for $400,000. Well, 10 years down the road, your house is insured for almost $700,000, and it's not worth that much to rebuild it. So that is always one thing you want to check, because at that point you're overinsured and you're paying more than you should, because the insurance company is not going to pay out $700,000 if it's only for $500,000 to rebuild your house from the ground up. So that's at a point where you're overinsured and you're paying too much money, when your agent could easily go and redo that policy and redo the estimated cost for how much it is to rebuild your house and adjust the policy, or shop for another policy. And it's completely up to you, but it is good to always be looking at your policy. Now, on the other side of that, older policies for older homes and stuff like that. Say you bought a house and it cost $80,000 to build it. You've had it insured for $80,000 for a long time.
Right.
Sometimes you cannot rebuild a house for $80,000.
Right.
So that's why it's always important to keep an eye on your policies. And the best time to look at it is at renewal. They renew every year. So whenever you get that package, either in the mail or an email from the insurance company, is just take a look at it, look at the numbers. Dwelling, it means your house, and that's how it's covered for. And usually just think about it. Will this be enough to rebuild the house from the ground up if it were to burn down? Of course, it's not market price, because we are not insuring the land. And land in Arizona is expensive.
Yes, it is. House and land are even more expensive.
Yes. So you just always need to keep an eye on it and keep a good conversation going with your insurance agent.
Gotcha. So like, for example, me, I pay my homeowner's insurance through escrow, right? And it was like one of those blanket insurance at the time we bought a few years ago, where the lender actually was the one that went out and got our insurance. The agent never calls. I don't even know who our insurance company is, to be honest. So, I mean, but I think I'm not alone when I say this, because I think that that is what happens in a lot of cases with homeowners, where the lender actually goes out and finds the best, most affordable insurance, I guess, for a homeowner. I guess I need to go and look into my homeowner's insurance.
I think the biggest issue there is what would you do if your house burned down? Who would you call?
Exactly. And thankfully, my lender actually has it up on our dashboard where we can see who our insurance company is and the contact information. But for a while there, because our loan got sold, so for a while there, the old lender didn't have that information, handy. So, and people these days are so busy and with life and everything else, we don't really pay attention to that sort of stuff.
And you shouldn't have to. That's when having a good insurance agent pays off, because you're not literally paying the insurance agent. It's the insurance companies that pay the insurance agent. So you're not paying anything extra for that agent. And they don't all do the same work. So you need to have an insurance agent that you know, that you trust, and that you have them on speed dial on your cell phone, because if something happens, you can call them and be like, hey, Martha, help me. This is happening. What do I do?
Yes, Martha, I think I will be calling you.
That's awesome. Well, no, but very seriously, I do tell all my clients, it's the first thing you do is put me down on your cell phone as Martha, your insurance agent. It's important that you know who to call in case of emergency, because of the fact that we need to be here for you during an emergency, because that's what insurance is for.
Yep. And I think too, it's important that you as a broker, because not only do you do homeowners insurance, you do auto and life as well. So to have one person have all those policies together makes it a lot easier for people.
Yes.
And I do recommend to my buyers when they, are asking me, well, where do I go for, in my homeowner's insurance? I said, well, who are you insured with your vehicle right now? Reach out to them to see if bundling your policies, makes sense to you. A lot of times they actually end up going with another company because it's more affordable, but that ultimately is on the buyer to shop around for their insurance and what works best for them. But I think knowing all these things and the details of homeowners insurance and the liability and, what to look for, what questions to ask is important, so that when a buyer goes out shopping for insurance, they know exactly what they need to be looking for. So that's super important. I wanted to ask you, with all the recent, with the Texas and, there's snowstorms, California with fires, we've got lumber shortages, going on, materials, things like that. How does that affect insurance these days and the cost of insurance? And like you said, you've got to estimate how much it's going to cost to rebuild that home. With all those things coming into play, does that affect the cost of homeowners insurance?
It does. Everything that goes on in the U.S. does affect the cost of all insurance, actually. The one where we usually see the biggest difference is auto insurance, because for example, here in Arizona, we do have quite a bit of accidents, and so that does impact rates for autos. Now with homeowners, I am seeing a little bit of a difference in rates and premiums because of the surge of natural disasters that we've been having. There is a surge of natural disasters, and we've been getting a lot more tornadoes, we've been getting a lot more snowstorms, and it's not just the Texas one, it's been in the Northeast as well, that we're getting a ton of snowstorms, where the fires in California, earthquakes, the amount of natural disasters has gone up, so that has been impacting our insurance rates a little bit, and people are going to see it. You can still get really good insurance rates, but they're not exactly as low as they used to be in, say, 15 years ago, because of the fact that we have seen an increase in natural disasters and insurance companies end up paying them out. Even if it takes longer, or even if people aren't happy with the replies of the insurance company and how long it takes them to pay out claims or whatever, they're still paying claims, and it is quite a ton of natural disaster claims.
So that actually affects not just at the state level, it's actually a national level. So if there's a natural disaster in Texas, it could affect the Arizona residents as well, right?
It can, because of the fact that these insurance companies are nationwide mainly. One of them is named Nationwide, but they are pretty nationwide. So they try to separate the states by what happens there. But because of the fact that they're serving many states, it does affect overall the premiums, because now premiums do adjust per state. So some insurance is a lot lower in Arizona as opposed to, say, Nevada. Homeowners premiums, homeowners insurance rates in Arizona are pretty low compared to other states. So we're pretty lucky because of the fact that we don't have the tornadoes. We had a little one, but we don't have tornadoes. We don't have the giant snowstorms.
Natural disasters that some of these other places and states see.
So we're pretty lucky that we have really good rates for homeowners insurance. Our auto rates,
I think it's one of the highest, right?
Yes, we are. We are, exactly. Thankfully, Las Vegas is really bad when it comes to auto rates. We're not as bad as them. New Jersey is a lot higher than us, but almost everywhere else we're higher.
And now, do rates and premiums, depending on the city itself, do those matter?
Yes, it depends on zip code.
On zip code? Okay.
Yes, depending on where your zip code is and how claims are in your zip code, it does impact your rates.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. So not necessarily because of crime rates or anything happening in that zip code particularly, or could that affect your premium and rate?
It affects it a little. So if you're in an area with higher crime, the premium might be a little higher. It's not that big of a difference that I've seen, though. It does make a teensy bit of a difference, but insurance rates, they're very personal. So your neighbor can have their homeowner's insurance is $400 a year, and then your next door neighbor is $800 a year, and then the next person is $1,200 a year. So it's a very personal thing, and it depends on how many claims you've had, how your credit history is, because credit does matter.
Can I ask about that too?
Yeah, not in California. California, your credit does not matter. But in Arizona, your credit does matter for your insurance rates. Like I said, claims, your zip code. So it's a ton of stuff that goes into the insurance rating for your premium. So you can't really compare to your friends or neighbors because it's not going to be the same for everybody. And,
right.
And I see that a lot. I'll get people saying, "Hey, my neighbor's paying $350 a month, and I'm paying $700." And I'm like, I know.
Well, and I see that as an agent. Oh, my cousin bought a house, and they're paying only $1,000 a month for a $300,000 house. How come my payment is $1,500? Well, I don't know. How's your credit? How much money did you put down? I mean, There's so many factors come into play with buying a home, buying homeowners insurance, auto insurance. There's a lot of things that take into consideration. So
absolutely,
not always apples to apples. Unfortunately.
And how long you've been with your prior insurance does count a lot. So it's, as a broker, that I have the option to have many different companies and shop around for my companies every year. For my clients every year, I tell them it's not a good idea to shop. You can shop whenever. It's not a good idea to hop from insurance company to insurance company, because that does impact your rates. So the more you move around, the less of a good prospect you look to.
Yeah.
Insurance companies are going to say, well, you don't stay with companies that long, so why would we give you the best rates we offer?
That makes sense. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover or give any other advice to your homeowners?
I think everybody should ask their insurance agent, if they're a homeowner, what is an umbrella and do I need an umbrella? Umbrella coverage is very important. It is, so we were talking about liability and how I usually start most homeowners policies at $500,000. Well, an umbrella will cover you for anything that comes up and over the $500,000. So if you're getting sued for that person that jumped into your pool without your permission because they died, that can lead somebody to bankruptcy if they don't have enough coverage. So an umbrella is a policy that will cover your homeowners, your auto insurance, up and over of the current liability limits you have, up to $1 million or $2 million or $3 million or $5 million, whatever you choose to have your umbrella coverage for. And a lot of times it'll cover stuff that your homeowner's insurance will not cover, and it will cover up to the $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, whatever you choose to have your umbrella policy at. Umbrella policies are very inexpensive considering how much coverage they're giving you. For example, I have my personal umbrella coverage is $1 million, and it covers, of course, my family, my husband, my son, our home, our autos, and I'm paying, how much did I pay? $230 or $240 for the year.
Wow.
So it's super, super inexpensive, and I'm getting $1 million in liability coverage.
Wow.
And this is for something that, say you have jet skis and you go to the lake and you lend it to the neighbor's kid that you took with you to the lake, and this kid has never driven a jet ski. And this is a true story. This has happened. Kid drives the jet ski into the dock and passes away. Parents sue. How much liability coverage are you going to have to be able to pay that out? And that is one thing that is very important, your liability coverage, and I don't think people think about it. And it changes lives.
Yeah, liability is huge in any policy, I think. Homeowners, car, life, and like you said, people don't think about it until it's happened to them or someone they know.
Yeah, and it's just the peace of mind that you get from knowing that you're driving down the road and you see a huge accident and well, if I had caused that, because there are accidents. So you can't say, I'm never going to do that because it's an accident. Mm-hmm. You look down for 2 seconds to change your radio station and you're smacked into 4 cars. So
it happens. Yeah.
And I hear stories all the time, and that's why they're called accidents, because nobody intends on it happening, but it does happen, and they can be life-changing. So it's always good to have that peace of mind knowing that you are covered in case of any accident.
You just want to always make sure you have the best protection possible for any of those unseen events. And we all hope that it never happens to us, but we never know. So I'm going to go look at my policy now.
Good idea.
Well, thank you so much, Martha. Thank you for coming on and talking about insurance. I'm going to leave your contact information in the description for anybody that is interested in connecting with you and finding out more on how you can help them possibly with any insurance or all of their insurance needs. So I'll be sure to provide all that information, and I really enjoyed our conversation here, and hopefully we can do it again.
I agree. It was great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time, and thanks for giving me an outlet to talk about what I love the most.
Yes, of course.